Hello? Who's there? Who's there? There's 3 people here. I want to see whom. Nope, just says me. Gosh, my hair looks terrible. Look at it. That is some bad looking hair. I mean, it would look better if I got my roots done. And it's just, oh, there, I fixed it. I kind of fixed it. Please talk. When I'm reading, don't talk. I mean, you can if you want, but I might not see it right away. I get distracted. When I'm reading, I can see somebody's written there because it moves. And I'm like, keep reading. You can wait. Hi. Tell me how to pronounce your name again. That way I can give you a personified greeting. What instrument would you like to hear? Tawada. Lead me to water. Sorry. Tawada. I got it. Where's my glockenspiel? Tawada. Ooh. I can't remember how the song Norwegian Wood goes, but I like it. I know I like it. I just can't remember it. Something like that. Which is better, Fantasy or Fantasy 2? I like them both. I'm going to attempt to read 2 chapters today. Do you guys remember what we decided we would read next after we finish Glowing Eye? Here, let me show you we're going to read a Files book from the 80s. I didn't see what year it was. I think it was one of the later ones. Now, let me show you what book I'm going to get. Volume 1 of. I'm pretty sure I put it in my cart just so it would be there. There's something in my cart. Yes. This is the book that I am going to get. Does anyone here play the piano? Can I play the piano anymore? Of course you can. Well, I couldn't before. Dr. Zayas. I always go and read the 1-star reviews. I mean, it has 80% 5-star reviews, 1% 1-star. Don't buy 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fingers doesn't work with many people. I need a book that teach me notes. I just wasted, as in the waste on your body. I just wasted my mind on this book. I do not recommend people to buy. Oh, sorry, that person has like a Russian name or something, so I shouldn't make fun of their English. If your mother tongue is English, I will make fun of your English. No, I'm just kidding. Oh, here's one I can't read because it's not in the English alphabet. Not all notes are in it. I didn't benefit from it. I don't recommend it. Poorly binded. Well, I don't care about that. I mean, I'm getting a spiral bound one. 1,000 plus rupees. I don't know if that's expensive. Do not recommend. This is made for teacher and not self-studying. Well, not according to most of the reviews. I don't have a teacher. I'm teaching myself. Plus, I have that blonde lady on the computer. If you have no background or knowledge in music, like me, this is not the book for you. I found this book to be confusing. I'm a beginner. As adults, my husband and I decided to try picking the piano again after not playing since childhood. Complicated and technical. Oh, goodness. Oh, goodness. But then one should look at the 5-star reviews. Whoops, I pressed the wrong button. One should look at the 5-star reviews. I love this book. I can work at my pace, very detailed, so clear and concise. Awesome. Yeah. Okay. So what would you like? What instrument should I put on here? Ooh. What does that sound like with sustain on? Okay, I'm gonna just go back to probably faster, turn the thing off and on than to dial all the way back to number 1. Okay. Okay. The sustain is not on. Now I put sustain on. Sustain on. Sustain off. What is sustain? It's like it stays longer. It plays for longer, right? Should I have sustain off or on? I'm going to turn it off. I don't know why. What happens if I press my setup? Oh, I don't know. Metronome. But I don't need a metronome. Okay, what is my next movie I'm going to watch? My Own Private Idaho. I have it on VHS at my parents' house. It's one movie I have only watched a couple of times, and I haven't watched it in a few decades, or at least a decade and a half. It's not one of my favorites. It's not an easy watch for me. But I love River Phoenix, and he is excellent in this flick. I don't like all the drug use and sex. But I've been watching My Own Private River, which, okay, I hate James Franco, but Gus Van Sant, who directed My Own Private Idaho, gave him all the footage that he didn't use in the movie. And James Franco took it and he made another like movie out of it. And it's very interesting. So it made me want to watch My Own Private Idaho. I don't like all the Shakespeare. It's too Shakespeare-y. It's too much drugs, too much sex, too much Shakespeare. And I'm going watch it anyway. It is quite engrossing, even though I don't understand the Shakespeare stuff. I suppose we should start reading, correct? Okay, I'm going to turn this off. Actually, I'm going to put it down so I'm not tempted. It's tempting. My fingers just want to touch it. Oh, my book fell down. Not the book I'm going to read to you. Oh, I better pick that up. Yesterday, I ate 2 chicken burgers. I dropped my little White Horse book. So I should put this book away. This is another book I'm reading. And I am going to put it away because I haven't been reading it right now. I'm just going to stick these over. Or I'm going to stick this one over here. I'm just going to put it right there for now. Okay, now I've got my book. If I recall, at the end of chapter 15, what was going on? Nancy and the girls were going to go to the museum. I wasn't sure if they were going to open the museum or just do investigating, or maybe both. And they're going to take Professor Titus with them, right? We didn't end on a cliffhanger or anything. Oh, yeah. George says, "Don't be chicken." That's right. And it lead us to Ned. Lead us to Ned. Chapter 16, Astonishing Discovery. That evening, the young people discussed every angle of the tangled mystery, but always came back to the subject of Ned Nickerson. Where was he? Bert said, "I'm sure Crossan, or whoever kidnapped Ned, knows that 2 hiding places are under surveillance. He'd be stupid to return to either one." George spoke up. "Then where would he go?" "I wish I knew," Bert replied. "But I feel strongly that Crossan may ditch the copter somewhere and hide out in a new place with Ned." Dave remarked with a groan that this would mean practically starting all over again to solve the mystery. "Yes," Bess agreed. "Oh dear, we haven't any clues left to follow. What are we going to do?" Up to now, Nancy had said nothing. An idea was formulating in her mind, however. Finally, George said, "Nancy Drew, what's whirling around in that brain of yours? You have the kind of faraway look you get when you're planning to go off on a new tack." Nancy smiled. "I admit I'm thinking about another approach to the mystery. Give me time. If nothing comes of my plan, I don't want to be shown up before you other detectives." Her friends laughed, and Bess asked, "On how many occasions have you been wrong?" "I can't think of any." Dave said, "Nancy's hunches usually turn out to be right, but at times," he paused, "she has some harrowing experiences before drawing her mystery to a conclusion." Pretty soon, everyone began to yawn, and finally good nights were exchanged. Bert told the girls that he and Dave had an appointment after Sunday chapel services the next day. "We may not see you in the morning. You're going to the museum, aren't you?" Nancy nodded and said if anything unusual or exciting happened, she would telephone the boys. Directly after breakfast the following morning, the girls tidied their room, then drove off to pick up Professor Titus. After greeting them all, he climbed into the front seat with Nancy, who headed for the chapel. Isn't there only a front seat? Wait, convertibles can have back seats. Yep. I don't know why I just thought of one of my favorite movies, Shag. It takes place in the 60s, and there are 4 of them. Yeah, there's 4 of them. 4 girls in a convertible. Okay. Who headed for the chapel. When the service was over, they drove directly to the Anderson Museum. Professor Titus turned to Nancy. "Are you going to solve the mystery today?" he asked with a twinkle in his eyes. Why not? She bantered. Then, becoming serious, she added, the authorities haven't captured Zap Crossan with Ned, and we all think that the kidnapper has a new hideout. And we haven't the vaguest idea where it is, Bess spoke up. Although I personally suspect Nancy has a hunch. Nancy made no comment, and in a little while they reached the museum. She unlocked the front entrance and they all went in. Professor Titus snapped on the hall light. Nancy, he said, suppose you give us each a job to do. I'm not very well acquainted with the exhibits here. Perhaps I should familiarize myself with them in order to be able to answer any questions visitors might ask. Yeah, seriously. Okay, so they're opening the museum and they know nothing about any of the exhibits. Really. To tell people about them. Okay. He's going to read the plaques and memorize them, I guess. Nancy said that she had formulated a plan of action for the group, but it had more to do with solving the mystery than it did with visitors. Why don't they just keep it closed while they're investigating? I don't understand that. I suggest that Bess sit here at the hall desk where Miss Wilkin used to be. Bess, you take the admission money and hand each caller one of these visitors' maps of the building. George suggested that her cousin study each newcomer carefully. If she felt suspicious about any person, she immediately was to call her friends to the lobby. Nancy, are they wearing beepers? Nancy asked Professor Titus if he would go into the room where they had seen the glowing eye and watch the wall carefully. I'm just checking what year this is from. 70s, yeah, 74. Winnie the Pooh, Winnie the Pooh. I didn't put those there. If anything unusual takes place, give a shrill whistle and we'll all come running. George spoke up. What's my assignment? Nancy said that she and George would explore upstairs. I guess it's not part of the museum itself because Miss Wilkin didn't mention it as such, and the map with directions to the exhibits shows only the first floor. How do we get to the second floor? George asked. I don't see a stairway anywhere. The young detective told her that they would have to hunt for it. She pointed out that the little map had an ST on a spot in the rear hall, which probably indicated a door leading to a stairway. Maybe it's a hidden stairway. The two girls went off and soon found the door. It opened easily. There's something up there. It opened easily and revealed a rather steep set of steps. Nancy led the way to the second floor, where there were several bedrooms with baths. Nancy and George went from one to another. They were in perfect order and did not seem to have been used recently. I guess nobody slept up here, George said as they came to the last room. Uh-oh, I was wrong, she added suddenly. You know, what is that? Is that where you would say, uh-oh, but they say, oh-oh? I never heard anyone say, oh-oh, uh-oh, oh-oh. I would say, oh, I was wrong, but oh-oh, uh-oh, but not oh-oh. Though there were no clothes in sight, the bed looked as if it had been hastily and badly made, and there were soiled towels carelessly slung over racks in the bathroom. Nancy remarked that she was sure Miss Wilkin had not stayed in the room. She's too neat to have left the place looking like this. It was a man. Then who was it? George asked. I'll bet you're thinking of Zap Crossan. Let's look for red hair. Nancy smiled. Yes, I'm thinking just that. But I'm also wondering if Ned was with him. George said she doubted it because Ned would have left some kind of clue, hoping Nancy would find it. Both girls began a thorough search of bureau drawers and even pulled the bed apart. They found nothing to help solve the mystery. I don't think, George said, Miss Wilkin knew anyone was using the place for diabolic schemes. Zapp probably worked on his weird inventions when she was not on duty. They don't even know that anything nefarious happened there. They're just guessing. On the other hand, Nancy countered, Miss Wilkin may have been intimidated by him to keep still, but our sleuthing frightened her, and she resigned in a hurry. Perplexed, the girls started to walk back to the stairway. At that moment, they heard a thud on the third floor. The two young detectives stared at each other. Was the intruder up there? Both girls had noticed a door which probably led to the third floor. Nancy tried to open it, but the door was locked. I'd like to look up there, Nancy said. Maybe there's a key to this door downstairs somewhere. Before going there to hunt for it, George said she would look in all the furniture drawers on the second floor. Nancy assisted, but the girls had no luck. In the meantime, there were no further sounds from the third floor. Perhaps no one's up there, George decided. Something just gave way and fell. The girls went to the first floor and began another search. When they came to the entrance hall, they asked Bess to look in the desk. There was no key in it. Did you hear a thud upstairs? George asked her cousin. Bess nodded. I thought one of you knocked something over. It was on the third floor, George told her. We were on the second. Bess made a face and hunched her shoulders. More spookiness. I'll be glad when 5 o'clock comes. We haven't had a single visitor. Maybe other people have had strange experiences here. Nancy and George went into the large room where Professor Titus was on guard. He reported nothing had happened, but said he too had heard the thud and had assumed the girls had caused it. When he learned otherwise, he did not take it lightly. Somebody may be up there. If so, we should call the police. Nancy said she would like to investigate the third floor before doing this. Perhaps there's a ladder in the basement and I can climb up. She and the other girls found none. Nancy suggested that they hunt for a secret stairway to the third floor. Let's examine the chimney in the center of the house first. Stairway in the chimney? They made a search but stayed away from the wall, which had proven dangerous for Nancy. That's probably the wall they want. Once more, they met with disappointment. Now, will you please give in, Nancy? The professor urged. One of us should call the police. All right, she said, and went to the entrance lobby to put in the call. At once, Bess spoke up. Don't use the phone. It's dead. I tried to call the boys at the fraternity house. But come over here. I have something very exciting to show you. Nancy, George, and Professor Titus hurried to the desk where Bess was seated. I made a discovery, she said. After you asked me to look for the key, I thought I'd make a better search in the drawer, and I found this. She showed the others a handwritten book of verses and began to read some of them. They're weird, Professor Titus remarked. Who wrote these? In answer, Bess opened the book to the first page. Written on it was, To my lovely and understanding aunt, Beatrice Wilkin, Cyclops, signed by Cyclops. End of chapter 16. That was a very short chapter, so we're going to read the next. And there's an illustration in the next chapter, so that's fun. End of chapter 16. So that was fun, right? I'm going to heat up my... What can I do to my hair to make it look better? I don't know. So I'm going to heat up my tea. Heat. So these I started taking these. I'll show you. I started taking. I'll take the price off. I can't take the price off. I started taking these when I was diagnosed with diabetes. I was just sitting there waiting for my prescriptions at the drugstore. Can you hear me over the kettle? And I was like, oh, glucose, fast acting glucose. These are for diabetic people. And I took one. I chose strawberry, and these are so good. It says to take 4 a day. I mean, I think of them as if I'm feeling a bit and it's like too much of a hassle to eat a spoonful of honey or drink a juice box. I have these, but they taste so good. Oh. Oh. Ooh, it's a very sweet artificial candy smell, and they're like chalky. They're like, in Canada, we have these candies called Rockets. In the US, you call them Smarties, but here Smarties are something completely different. In Canada, Smarties are like M&Ms. There's candy called Smarties, and they're more like M&Ms. Those things that like they're a little pill size and they come in a little roll. Those are called Rockets here. Anyway, they're kind of like rockets. They're so yummy. So if you need some glucose, get some Dex 4. They're kind of expensive, but I mean, expires in 2028. They're so yummy. It's worth the expense. Pixie, do you want to see people, Pixie? Pixie, do you want to join me for a minute, Pix? I can be with you on my shoulder. I'm going to see if Pixie wants to join us, okay? You want to join us, Pixie? Come on. Come on, friend. Come on, friend. Come on. Come on, friend. Come on, friend. Come on, baby friend. Whoa. Come on, baby friend. You want to sit on my shoulder? Poop-a-doo. Poop-a-doo. So they clipped her flight feathers before I took her home. I only realized it when I got her home and looked. So she tries to fly. She's been trying to fly, like she'll take off a few times a day because she doesn't understand. And I keep telling her, well, when her flight feathers grow back in, she'll be able to fly. Because I don't believe in clipping. See, there she goes. I have to go save her. She doesn't want to stay right now. She's never sat on my hoodie, so maybe she's afraid. Come on. You can go back in your house, okay? You can go back in your house. Kiss, kiss. There. Get you a drink of water, okay? Get you a drink of water. That's my good girl. So there, you saw her for like a split second. What was I saying? Yeah. I used to have cockatiels, and I think, one of them got sick, and that was when I still lived with my parents. So they paid for the exotic vets. We had to go almost to Montreal or something, at least an hour from home, where there was an exotic vet, and she had to stay there. I don't remember exactly what was wrong, but they had to like give her stuff. And so thank God my parents paid for that. I remember my dad, I guess my mom was like working. I don't know why my dad took me. Anyway, I remember going with my dad to leave her there and pick her up. Anyway, they showed me how to clip her wings, and I had 2 cockatiels, and I always clipped their wings. No, I didn't always. Like sometimes I did, and sometimes I let them grow in, which is probably worse, Like, oh, sometimes you let me fly and sometimes you don't. But I understand now that, God, they were hand fed, and so they were really cuddly, and I had them out all the time. But I understand now that it's wrong to clip wings. I understand there can be like safety reasons, but I don't think it's fair to the bird. So we're looking forward to Pixie's first molts. I I love I love feathers. I love it when they grow in, new feathers grow in. It's like the most beautiful thing ever. I'm fascinated by pin feathers and blood feathers. And I can't wait until she has like a bunch of pin feathers and I can help her on her head. Anyway, I told her, yes, soon, someday, her new feathers will push out the old ones that are chopped, and I will be new and full and perfect. I like, there are, if you go on YouTube, you put in pin feathers, you can find videos of people helping their little bird friends with the pin feathers. It's beautiful. It's just very nice. And it's a way to bond with the bird too. Some birds won't let you. Mine always did. And Pixie lets me rub her head and like where her ears are and her neck. So I'm sure she'll like to be helped when she has little pin feathers that are ready to break free. Does anyone else like birds? Mm. Let's do chapter 17. Oh yeah, what just happened? Beatrice Wilkin is the aunt of Cyclops. She has more than one eye. I wonder if she's a blood relative. Chapter 17, Paralyzing Light. Beatrice Wilkin, the aunt of Cyclops. Everyone crowded around the small desk where Bess was seated and stared at the book she had found in the drawer. I can't believe it, George burst out. That prim little woman, the aunt of a criminal. Nancy suggested that they look inside the book for further information. Everyone was astounded at the contents and puzzled as to why Miss Wilkin had left the book there. You would think, Professor Titus spoke up, that she would want to conceal such information. Bess sighed. She probably forgot to take it with her because she was in such a hurry to get away. As the group read on, there was only praise for the elderly custodian who had permitted Cyclops to sleep on the second floor of the museum and to carry on certain experiments in the building. So that like tells us that who is sleeping there, right? We just learn a whole lot in that tiny book. This means Cyclops is one person with one eye, Nancy deduced, not a gang. But what about his pals? George spoke up. How much did they know? Read this, Nancy said presently. Cyclops actually experimented on the glowing eye project right here, and Miss Wilkin knew all about it. George asked, do you suppose she could have worked hand in hand with her nephew? That seems incredible, Professor Titus replied. I'm more inclined to think that Miss Wilkin did not understand the invention. When several people inquired about it, she became suspicious herself. Then, after what happened to Nancy yesterday, the woman panicked and left suddenly. Nancy was not completely satisfied with this explanation. She's probably on the third floor. Did Miss Wilkin believe that Cyclops' pals were Emerson College students? Or had she lied to Nancy and her friends when asked about them? The discussion was interrupted by a knock on the front door. The professor opened it and admitted a man who said he was Ben Farley from the telephone company. We've received complaints from people who have tried to call here. Apparently, your line's out of order." Nancy pulled out the map of the museum's first floor and looked carefully for the main telephone box location. She found it, and the repairman suggested that the incoming line was probably underground in a basement not shown on the directions. Sorry. Professor Titus and the girls went with him. They found the box. Uh-huh. No, actually, it's or the repairman said. "Someone cut the line." See, it says, where does it say it? See? Someone cut the line. After examining the break carefully, Farley asked, "Did you have a burglary?" Professor Titus said he did not think so, but they had just discovered that an intruder had slept on the second floor. The telephone man went out to his truck to get special wire and tools. The others returned to the lobby and continued to read the book of poems by Cyclops. It's poems. So he wrote poems about, it said it was verse. There was only praise so he wrote poems praising Aunt Beatrice. Okay. Okie doke. There were many items which seemed to identify Cyclops as Zap Crossan. One was a poem in which the words cross and on were used to describe an ill-tempered little boy with fiery red hair. "He must have been describing himself as a child," George declared. Nancy said she was sure Crossan would return to the museum and perhaps bring his pals with him. "I feel this place should be guarded," she said. At once, Professor Titus offered to stay. "But not alone," Nancy said. "I certainly think Bess and George and I should remain with you." Just then, the telephone repairman came back to the lobby and reported that service on the line had been restored. "That's good," said Bess. "It's kind of eerie being in a place like this without a telephone." Ben Farley smiled and said if there was any further trouble to contact the company. He drove off. "The first person I should call," said Nancy, "is my dad." "Do you think Dad's there, or is he off with Marley?" Marley? Is that Marty? Marley. Oh. Professor Titus said he would like to let his wife know the change of plan and why he would not be home. "I'm shacking up in a museum with 3 teenage girls." Bess spoke up. "I think Bert and Dave should be told too." "Yes," George agreed. "And besides, we should find out if they have had any news of Ned, either from him or from the authorities." The calls were made. Bert and Dave were surprised and concerned for their friend's safety, but thought the girls' plan to keep an overnight watch was a good one. "We haven't heard anything from or about Ned," Bert added. When all the phoning was finished, Bess glanced at her watch. "Do you know it's dinner time?" she asked. "Suppose I phone a restaurant in town and see if they'll deliver some food to us." What kind of food would you order? Let's see. What kind of food do you think they should order? There's an illustration coming up on the next page. Hopefully, she tried one place after another and was beginning to think the group would have to go all night without eating. Sometimes I want to change the sentence. I was going to say, and was beginning to think the group would have to resort to cannibalism when she found a roadside restaurant that did deliver meals. The food arrived within an hour. They sat on chairs in the main lobby to eat. After they finished, each one began to nod and close his eyes. They took turns walking around, trying to stay awake. But by 10 o'clock, everyone was back in his chair and getting into a comfortable position for a nap. They show the chairs on the next, like benches on the next page, and they don't look comfortable. I don't think you could get into a comfortable position. All the lights had been turned out, and the watchers remained silent until sleep overcame them. Why are they sleeping? Maybe there was something in the food. No one knew how long they had dozed when suddenly the group was awakened by a strong, penetrating searchlight flashed in their faces. As the startled group concentrated on it, everyone realized that the light seemed to be emitted from a huge, glowing eye. Nancy's first thought was to make a dash for the person holding the searchlight. To her amazement, she found herself unable to get up. She stared stupefied at the others. Each one sat paralyzed. Suddenly, a voice that seemed to come from far away said, "Don't try to follow me, even after you can move again." I'd be freaking the flip out. How about you guys? At once, the huge light went out, and the immobile group could vaguely hear the front door open and close. The person with the glowing eye searchlight had left. It was fully 5 minutes before anyone could move or speak. Slowly, Nancy arose and made her way to the telephone on the desk. How's she going to explain this? As she lifted the phone, a light went on, showing up the numbers. She dialed the police emergency number and got headquarters. A sergeant on duty promised to send men out right away. Wonder what she told them, though. Should I get a perm? No, that would ruin my hair even more. But it would like make it more full. Oh, I definitely don't want to. I just want it to get, oh yeah, like a week or so ago, I went, so my hair is really messed up. Back to the story. Nancy turned on the lights in the lobby and asked the others how they were feeling. Fortunately, no one had suffered any bad effects. Maybe there are long-term effects later. That was a strange experience, Professor Titus remarked. Have you any explanation for it? Nancy asked him. Not exactly, he replied, but it reminds me of something I read about medical students studying the brain waves of a person who had been put to sleep under hypnosis. It was discovered that his wave pattern could be imprinted upon another brain by using a laser beam of a certain wavelength. Ugh, I'm getting creeped right out. You better stay away from my brain. Of course, the original brain waves had to be programmed in order to be modulated. Does this guy work for the CIA? This in turn produced a paralyzing sleep. Sounded like some kind of hush-hush kind of government experiment, MK Ultra and all that jazz, you know? Ugh. One of the hospitals where MK Ultra was like, they did huge experiments is in Montreal. Wait, I can't even remember the name of it now. It's still a hospital. It's like one of the old hospitals. What was that guy's name? Ugh. Sorry, I'm getting off. MK Ultra. What's that guy's name? Canadian. Ugh, Ewan Cameron. That's not what that's the hospital's name? No, it's part of a hospital. Oh, wait. Royal Victoria Hospital. I mean, the place is still there, but they did horrible experiments on unknowing people, just regular citizens. You can read about it and watch documentaries. It's quite shocking and disturbing and distressing, but another reason why I never trust the government. I don't even trust, like, I trust certain doctors and medical people, but overall, I don't really trust anyone. Anyway, I'm getting off topic. Yeah, paralyzing sleep. Nancy was thoughtful. What happened to us must have been done some other way because nobody hypnotized us, and the programming would have to be different for each individual in the group. I'm telling you, something was in that food. I'm putting my hand here because I don't want to look ahead and see that I'm right. Maybe my theory is crazy, but I'm thinking not. That's right, Professor Titus agreed. The phenomenon we experienced will take a good deal of study. Bess's eyes were wide open. Who would ever think of such a horrible invention? Professor Titus smiled. Criminals conjure up many things that ordinarily seem beyond their capabilities. I think I've made a discovery. The person, didn't he just say? Oh, okay, it wasn't him doing it. It was he read about medical students. Okay. I think I've made a discovery. The person who gave us the warning a few minutes ago sounded exactly like Zap Crossan. Yeah, he would think of that, doing those things, because he has no soul. So, it wouldn't bother him to experiment on people. Maybe he has been on the third floor all this time, George suggested. I'll run up and see if that door leading to it is unlocked. In a couple of minutes, she reported that the door was still tightly locked. Bess looked frightened. Are you saying that Zap Crossan is up there with his paralyzing searchlight and may come back any time to use it on us again? Nancy said she doubted this because they had heard the front door close. I don't think he'll return here for a while. Let's go back to dreamland. She picked up the phone once more and contacted police headquarters. Where are those guys? This time she asked them to send out a detective who was also a locksmith. 10 minutes later, a car with several officers reached the museum. One of them was Dr. Marcus, the police surgeon. He insisted upon examining each victim of the paralyzing searchlight. He tested their responses and announced that the whole group was in good health. Asked them what they ate. He asked them how they had felt during the immobile period. Professor Titus and the girls said they had no unusual sensations except being unable to move. May we please go upstairs and watch you open the door? Nancy asked the locksmith detective. Certainly, he answered. My name is Tim Rooney. The whole group trooped up the stairway and watched as the detective tried one key after another. Finally, he was able to unlock the door. The girls wanted to rush up to the top floor, but Dr. Marcus said, No, not until we find it's safe. A few minutes later, he came down. It's okay. You're in for a surprise, he remarked. There's a fully equipped electrical and electronic lab up there. How amazing, said Professor Titus. By this time, Nancy had surmised as much. She led the way up the steps. What particularly drew her attention in the spacious attic room were a series of pictures on the walls. They depicted gruesome scenes of battles, both between individuals and groups, and the slaughter of animals. How ghastly, Bess exclaimed. By now, everyone was staring at the pictures of persons and animals about to have one eye gouged out with various kinds of hand weapons. I don't like this. Bess covered her eyes with her hands, just as Dr. Bess covered her eyes with her hands, just as Dr. Marcus said, "The man who owns these pictures is an unusual and dangerous killer type." Nancy's heart jumped. "And he is holding Ned." She could not finish the sentence. Good old one-eyed Ned Nickerson. End of chapter 17. Well, whew, that was quite a few chapters there, huh? It was quite interesting. So we read 2 chapters. I was thinking of something else. 17? No. Wait. What did we wait? Yeah, we read 16 and 17. The next one is 18. So if 18, 19, we only have 3 chapters left. Yes, I had to count on my fingers 3 times. You want to fight about it? I don't want to fight. So now what? I think that's it for today. And I will see everyone again next time, okay? I'm gonna play with my birdie now. Okay. Everyone have a wonderful Sunday. And I will see you again. Bye.